Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. I am delighted to have as our guest today my very dear friend, old friend actually, not OLD, but OLE.
Of long standing.
The former Lieutenant Governor of the state of Alabama and Attorney General, youngest Attorney General ever, I think, at the ripe old age of 28. He needs no introduction. His name is Bill Baxley. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tommy. It's great to be anywhere with you.
Oh, that's nice. Should we tell them we were together on 9/11 in a courtroom stuck in Marshall County? We don't need to do that.
Trying a criminal case in Marshall County.
Yeah, and never took a break.
Yeah, we took a break when after it ran in the first
Building.
building. We took a break and they brought a TV in and we watched the second one.
And they said, call your next witness. Well, Bill, we practiced law in the same building when I started, which was 45 years ago, which is the first time I got up close and personal with you, and we've remained close ever since then. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in politics in Alabama. And you got 6 minutes to do it in.
Oh, gosh. Well, I was born in Dothan. My ancestors go back as far in Alabama as probably anybody except Native Americans. The last Baxley that wasn't born in Alabama was born in South Carolina in the 1700s. And, so I've got roots as deep in Alabama as anybody around, probably.
You went to the University of Alabama, right?
Yeah, went to the University of Alabama, started in 1958, same year as Coach Bryant started coaching at Alabama.
I remember him.
Oh, I got to be good friends with him. I really treasure the memories of
I'll bet.
being with him. He was just as interesting as you think he is.
Did you go to law school at Alabama?
Went to law school at Alabama, undergrad and law. In fact, I was over 21, I think had finished undergraduate school before I ever went further north than either Chattanooga or Memphis, whichever one of those is the furthest north.
Probably Memphis.
They're about the same.
Yeah.
Memphis touches Mississippi and Chattanooga touches Georgia, I think. But I've got Alabama all the way.
Did you come out of law school and go immediately into politics?
No, but close. I came out in 1964, and my first job was as a clerk at the Alabama Supreme Court. I clerked for Judge Jamie Coleman, and that was a year-long clerkship, and it was a great year to be clerking. The fall of '64 and the winter and summer of '65, and that was when they had many of the great decisions, the settlement of Montgomery March, and I was a first-hand witness to it. I was in law school when Wallace did the stand in the schoolhouse door, and I was the law school at that time. It was right in front. The back of the law school was in front of Foster Auditorium where they were having the registration. So I watched out of a open window on the second floor of the law school, and I was probably, oh gosh, much less than 100 yards, maybe 40 yards away from. I saw it all.
Well, those were troubled times,
Yep.
obviously.
Yep.
And was that inspirational to you? Did that?
No, I wouldn't say it was inspirational, other than it inspired me to try to want to do things to change the way
That's
we were
what
in
I meant.
Alabama. Yes, I was embarrassed that it was happening, and I felt sorry for the young people, Vivian Malone and Jimmy Hood, that were being admitted and trying to be admitted to school to get an education. And as far as I reckon inspirational, made me even more want to try to do something to try to change the way we were doing in Alabama.
So after that clerkship, is that when you began to work at the AG's office?
No, I never did work in the AG's office till I was the AG. After the clerkship, I went off for 6 months in the military. And then I came back to Dothan and went in practice with a firm. And it was a good firm. I spent 6 months there, and they came an opening for district attorney. And so I went out and got a petition and went around the Bar Association and got every lawyer in the county and in Henry County except for two, my dad and my boss.
They wouldn't sign your petition?
No, they didn't want me to. My dad was a judge, and he had been a judge or DA for, gosh, decades. And back then they didn't pay them very well. And so he did not want me making what he felt like was the same mistake. Even though he was a public servant, they just didn't make any money, and my mother had to work, and my brother and I had to work all in high school, college. And so my dad wanted me to practice law where he felt like I'd make more money than be in public office. And he wouldn't sign it, and my boss at the firm wouldn't sign it because he didn't want me to leave. But everybody else signed it. And so
you ran and you won?
I first got appointed to an unexpired term, and then ran without opposition. So I had a little over 4+ years as DA, and then that's when I decided to run for Attorney General.
Well, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about from Attorney General forward at that point. Don't leave me. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Bill Baxley. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. I'm talking with Bill Baxley about his history with the state of Alabama, and we're just getting into the meaty part of becoming the state's youngest Attorney General, I do believe. Is that an accurate statement of fact?
I think the first one was younger, the very first one.
Younger than you?
Yeah.
And you were 28, as I recall.
Yeah. I don't think there were but 3 lawyers in Alabama, and I think he was the youngest.
Wow. So you were district attorney in Henry County?
Houston and Henry.
Yeah, it had two counties
yes.
in the circuit. And you ran for a statewide office after you serving your term there?
Yes, I ran for Attorney General in 1970. Now the election back then was, the only election you really had was the Democratic primary.
Right.
That was in May, first week of May of 1970.
Well, things have changed.
Yes, indeed.
So what was going on a statewide basis from the Attorney General's perspective during those times? I mean, that was the era of the Civil Rights Act and things of that nature. You've spoken about your observations when you were a student at the University of Alabama. From the Attorney General's perspective, what was on your plate at that time?
Well, I ran against the incumbent. He had been Attorney General 2 terms. In fact, the election before, he'd set the record for the most votes anybody had ever gotten in Alabama up to that time. And so he was the incumbent, and I ran. Nobody, I think, thought I had a chance, but with a lot of good luck and good friends' help and be in the right place at the right time, and I beat him. And then he started a third party, and I had to run against him again in November in the general election.
What was that party called?
Oh gosh, what was the name of it?
Don't worry about it.
I never will forget though. Can't remember the name of it, but I remember Ted Bryant, who was a reporter for the
Birmingham News.
the Post Herald, Birmingham
Yeah.
Post Herald. He wrote a story about it, and he said the party needs a symbol. Everybody's got to have a symbol, like the Republicans have the elephant and the Democrats have the donkey. He said this party that my opponent started, he got about 5 or 6 other people that had been incumbents in the legislature that got beat, and they joined that party, and so they all ran. And he said their symbol or emblem ought to be the sour grape because they'd all been beat in the primary. So
And I take it none of them won.
none of them won.
Because we
That's
were
right.
so solidly Democratic back in those years.
Yes.
When do you think that changed, Bill?
It started gradually changing not too long after that. I really think the roots of the change started when Eisenhower ran for president. Now, he didn't win Alabama, but he got more votes than any Republican up to then had ever gotten. And that kind of started the trend where people got comfortable, some people got comfortable voting Republican. And then in '64, Goldwater swept Alabama and some other deep South states, and so I think it had its roots starting in '64, but it didn't really come into fruition until a little later.
So while you're Attorney General, is Wallace governor?
I got elected Attorney General the same year that Wallace beat Albert Brewer in the runoff for governor. So Wallace and I got elected the same election, except he had a runoff with Brewer, and I didn't have a runoff. So
What was that like, working with him?
I liked him a lot as a person. Now, I didn't like what he did, and I didn't like what he had done in the past. But as far as a human being and enjoying being around him and working with him, I liked him a lot. He ran, unfortunately, I felt for the state, the most racist campaign I think ever in that runoff for Brewer. Now, I was not a Brewer fan. I didn't ever really care that much for Brewer. When I told you I watched Wallace stand in the schoolhouse door, which I did, Albert Brewer was his loyal Speaker of the House at that time, and he stood in the door with Wallace. And people seemed to never realize that Brewer stood there with him.
Well, did he interfere with your decisions regarding prosecutions?
No, he never did, and I was worried about that, very worried that he would do that, because he had run a really racist campaign. And it's an interesting story if you want me to get into it. But
Go ahead. Let's do this.
Okay.
We're going to run out of time for you to tell this story.
Okay.
So we'll take a quick break,
Okay.
and we'll come back and start that story.
Okay.
And you can tell us from the beginning without interruption about those days.
Okay.
So don't go away, folks. This is Our Issues Birmingham. I'm Tommy Spina. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. I'm speaking with Bill Baxley, who I abruptly cut off from a story just moments ago. Well, you listen to lawyer ads. What were you going to say?
Well, early in the campaign, early in my term, like the first 3 weeks, I made some decisions and we made some changes. And
We're in the 70s, right?
Yes, 71, January of 71. And my predecessor that had been in office, who I defeated, had filed quite a few suits, some of them with other southern states, where Alabama was suing, trying to prevent black people from serving on juries, trying to prevent from registering to vote. So I had them make a list of the pending cases that we were in, where we were trying to block federals doing stuff about trying to make it a better, more equal opportunity for people. And so they made a list of the ones that were pending. And I called the federal court. They were all in federal court. And I scheduled, they set all of them for status conference. And so I decided that we were going to go and dismiss all those cases that the state was in. Now, we weren't giving up anything because you weren't going to win any of them anyway. It was just done for politics, and it was I think a waste of the state's resources and money and everybody's time and everything else to have them. So we weren't giving up anything, but every one of them was in front of Judge Frank Johnson. And
you had a friendly forum.
Yeah, so he wasn't going to rule. They were the theories that the state had chosen were not good legal sound theories. But anyway, I made a list, and we were going to go over the next morning, and I thought, Governor Wallace is governor. He is the governor of the state. Now, the Attorney General's in control of litigation, but I feel like I owe it to him to tell him what I'm going to do so he doesn't see it in the news or in the paper. So I called and got an appointment with Governor Wallace, and I got up this law that said the Attorney General was in control, and bear in mind, he'd run this real racist campaign. So I was sweating bullets when I told him. Sweating bullets about having to tell him.
Mm-hmm.
And he had just 4 years before had this terrible, 8 years before, feud with Richmond Flowers, who was Attorney General. And I said, this is going to be a repeat of the same thing. I hate to get crossways with him, but I just got to tell him this, and I feel like I'm entitled to let him know ahead of time. He's entitled to know ahead of time. So I went over there to see him and was nervous as I could be. And I sat down, I had my little folder with my cases and the law saying the Attorney General's in control, and told him what I was going to do the next day. And he said, well, Bill, I'm not going to try to tell you how to run the Attorney General's office, and I don't expect you to tell me how to run the governor's office. Now let's talk about so-and-so and so-and-so. That's all he ever said.
And you went on your merry way?
Yeah, the next day we dismissed all the cases, and they hardly didn't even make they made page 22 on the news, a little blurb like that, which suited me fine.
Well, in that time frame, aside from the struggle about civil rights, what else was going on at the Attorney General level? These days we have corruption, public corruption. I'm assuming public corruption has been around since the beginning of time.
We had that. I was the first Attorney General in a long time that actually did the trial work. In fact, I don't think any of them in the country except me at that time. Later,
you liked that?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I did not like managing the office and having to referee feuds about who gets what parking space and stuff like that. So I wanted to be in the courtroom, so I was trying cases all over the state, all the big cases.
Yeah.
That the Attorney General's office was in.
So for your information, the Attorney General's office has general supervisory powers over all prosecutions in all counties if it elects to do so.
That's
correct?
right. Alabama probably has the most organically powerful attorney general of any of the states. He or she, one day they'll be a she, but they can take over any case anywhere in the state. They can move another DA in. They can come in themselves, bring an assistant in. They can initiate cases, ask for grand juries in any county.
Well, with that power in this day and age, that's subject to abuse.
Well, it was subject to abuse back then, or it was subject to abuse always, because it's been on the books and in the Constitution for a long time.
But not every attorney general has abused it.
I don't know of any that have, really.
Okay. So you don't feel like our current state of affairs is in any way, there's some that think that the attorney general these days is trying to take over lots of facets of what has traditionally been delegated to others. We may not have time to go into that, but that's just me.
I think that they've always had the power to do it. It depends on why you're taking it over. I don't think the attorney general, even though he or she has the power to do it, should use that power unless there is a good reason for the public good to do it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I hope, that every time we did it and exercised that power, that we had a good reason to do it. And so that's why I don't think we got very much criticism about it.
Well, let me say this. This time has gone by incredibly fast talking with you, and I know I'm scratching the surface of what wealth of information sits behind those eyes, but we just don't have time to go into it. But we're going to have you back because I want to talk to you specifically about one topic. So will you agree to come back and be with us?
Absolutely. I'll agree to meet with you for coffee or anything, anytime, Tommy.
Okay, as long as there's a camera there.
Not even with a camera.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. Thanks to Bill Baxley for being with us. We'll see you next Sunday.
I am blind, but I need not see. I know this road is there for me.